Clemson defeats Ohio State in an absolute thriller, 29-23. Game-winning touchdown with less than 2 minutes to play for the Tigers. Travis Etienne, 2 receiving touchdowns, and this man, Bryant McFadden, said at halftime, get Travis Etienne involved in the passing game. What'd they do? They got Travis Etienne involved in the passing game, and now they're back in the national championship.
Wow. That's all I can say. The adjustments we saw from Clemson, Dabo Swinney, his staff, was so impressive. I mean, the first half, they didn't play quality football in the trenches from the defensive side. Offensively, they couldn't get things going. And then the second half, it was just like, okay, now it's time to play football. Entertaining ball game. I mean, you got your money's worth. If you watched this ball game, you enjoyed it.
Clemson covers the number, 2.5. The under cashes. I had the under. Barton Simmons had the under. We knew that there was going to be this was going to be a low-scoring game. Points at a premium. Why? Because Clemson and Ohio State 1-2 in points per game allowed this season in FBS. They combined here for 52 points. A heck of a game. Keep in mind here all of the turning points that happened in this game that went against Ohio State. Justin Fields, this was a rare performance from Justin Fields. He had 1 interception coming into this game all season. He threw 2 picks, of course the one being the last in the end zone that sealed the deal for Clemson. But Justin Fields hadn't thrown 2 interceptions all season, and he throws 2 in this game in the college football playoff semifinal. Now Clemson headed to the national championship game with a look to defend their title against the fellow Tigers from LSU. All right, let's welcome in Barton Simmons. Barton, how about that? The under cashes, you broke it down for us on Sportsline on Friday. You knew what this matchup was going to be, a defensive battle, but we saw explosive plays. Just your initial reaction to how this game went down.
Yeah, I felt like we were watching a national championship game. That was the level of play. I mean, this was the type of game that just both teams deserved to win. Both teams were good enough to win. You hate to see a team lose. But that's why Clemson's here. And I'm just so impressed with Dabo Swinney and Brent Venables and Tony Elliott and the game plan that they instituted and the adjustments that they made along the way. Trevor Lawrence being such a big part of the run game and them holding off that counter until the very last drive of the game where they worked that Trevor Lawrence quarterback keep to the jump pass that goes for touchdown to Travis Etienne to basically win the football game. Just so many different elements of that from a game plan standpoint that were so impressive. And I know we're talking about this game particularly, but you saw the different ways that Brent Venables' defense and that 3-man front and Isaiah Simmons, the different ways they can use him. You saw how it could be difficult on a quarterback. And Justin Fields, 2 interceptions, 1 interception all the rest of the year. Again, I think that's going to be finally maybe the biggest challenge that Joe Burrow has faced when they get to LSU. So that's a real test that this defense shows you, and they certainly earned it with Ohio State not giving them anything easy and really making it all count.
I want to get your reaction and really your point of view here on several turning points in this game. I'll start with the targeting on Shaun Wade, ejected. That led to 14 straight points for Clemson going into halftime. Roughing the punter by Ohio State led to a touchdown, Travis Etienne. Then a fumble reversed for a touchdown. It was called incomplete. I mean, essentially here, 21 points taken off the board for Ohio State. I mean, those moments in this game decided this game. Do you agree, disagree with that?
Yeah, partially. I mean, I do agree. I think the Shaun Wade hit and the targeting call was a huge turning point because it really felt like there was a bit of an avalanche coming Clemson's way had that gone in Ohio State's favor. It didn't. Obviously, Clemson capitalized, and you give Clemson credit for playing like champions, getting that opportunity, and then taking advantage of it. So, yeah, that was a huge turning point. Obviously, the scoop and score that got wiped off the board was a huge turning point. The roughing the punter was a huge turning point. But all that said, I think Ohio State, when it looks back on this game, I don't think that's going to be what keeps it up at night. I don't think any of those plays are going to be what really keeps Ryan Day up at night. I think what will keep him up at night is that first half when Ohio State absolutely had Clemson on its heels, was rolling drive after drive after drive, gets to the red zone 4 times. 3 of those times they have to settle for field goals. When you're playing a team like Clemson, when Clemson's playing a team like LSU, when Clemson's playing a team like Ohio State, those kind of teams, you can't settle for field goals. You have to take advantage of every scoring opportunity that you get. Ohio State failed to finish those drives, and you just knew it was going to come back to bite them, and sure enough, it did.
BMAC, you remember the touchdown that was called incomplete. J.K. Dobbins kind of bobbled it there in the end zone. Then they had to kick a field goal. At the time, we're thinking, no, just take the points. What would you have done in that situation?
The field goal, I think, was the ideal thing to do. You put points on the scoreboard, and the momentum was in your favor. There were a number of plays that could have went the opposite direction that could have helped Ohio State, but just in total, their red zone offense was not good. Clemson's red zone defense was better in the first half. And then the adjustments we did not see from Ohio State. Running Trevor Lawrence was a main feature for Clemson. Find a way to get Trevor Lawrence out of that shell, running the football, and then not playing gap football, being gap sound in the trenches, and losing contain. There were a few different things that I saw from Ohio State's defense that led to opportunities for Clemson. And Trevor Lawrence just outplayed Justin Fields. He played clean football. 2 costly interceptions for Justin Fields gave Clemson momentum. And, of course, we saw the game-winning interception there in the latter part of the fourth quarter. But playing clean football and the red zone issues was the death of Ohio State.
The one thing you and I talked about at halftime, BMAC, was T. Higgins was banged up, right? Left the game.
He came back
on their first possession. He did end up coming back. They make the adjustments, Barton, of getting Travis Etienne involved in the passing game. That's what BMAC said they needed to do in the second half. And here, that's what they do. Travis Etienne, 2 receiving touchdowns, and they win the football game.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that, Clemson did a good job of continuing to just distribute the football around. And look, Ohio State has 2 of the best corners, maybe the best cornerback pair in college football. And so it was going to be tough going on the outside, even with T. Higgins and Justin Ross fully healthy. And clearly those guys were both banged up. But there's so many other ways that Clemson can beat you. And look, hey, offensively, it was rough going all night. And Travis Etienne got some touches on the perimeter in the pass game and was able to make the most out of them. Amari Rodgers had a big play in that 2-minute drive as well there late in the game. So there were some other guys that were able to make plays. But over the course of the game, such complimentary football Clemson played, whether it be in playing really good down in the last 4 minutes of the first half, first 4 minutes of the second. That middle 8 that Clemson it holds in such high esteem in terms of their game plan. Defensively, making enough plays in enough moments to keep that offense in it. And then you just knew when Trevor Lawrence got the big moment and the big opportunity late, he was going to take advantage of it. But, that's what a great football team does. When someone takes away your big plays, when you have some injuries or some guys that get banged up, you find ways to get your playmakers the football in alternate fashion, and Clemson did that. And I'm just in awe of the game plan of Dabo Swinney and his staff and the way they can make adjustments on the fly.
It's interesting because Dabo Swinney loved to play the underdog role, right? The no disrespect. We're the reigning national champions. No one's giving us a shot. Look, they came into this game winning 28 in a row. Trevor Lawrence came in with a 24-0 record, now 25-0 as a starter. And now you see that, okay, their schedule isn't as rough and tough as Ohio State's. It's not as rough and tough as LSU or Oklahoma. But now they validate how good they are. Barton, what does this say about Clemson as a program to play in this game the way they did, come back and win it?
I mean, it certainly continues to point to Clemson as being the premier program in college football right now. I know that sounds blasphemous considering what Alabama has done over the last decade, but right now it's Clemson. And you can have beef with the schedule. You can talk about them not playing anybody all you want. But this is a Clemson team that in the big moments was better coached, made bigger plays. I mean, Ryan Day didn't go for 2 in those closing minutes. I mean, there were some moments there where Dabo Swinney just looked more prepared. His team looked sharper. And so I think that's who Clemson is right now. And when you get to these big games, Clemson is ultimately a team that you know isn't going to beat itself, and it has the playmakers now to make big plays. And so I think throughout the season, last year we heard about Clemson basically game planning for Alabama during Notre Dame week, almost looking ahead. Obviously, it couldn't do that this week. They had a huge battle, a war against this Ohio State team. It's probably been preparing for Ohio State now for a couple weeks, and it probably has a few things banked for LSU as well. Now it's got 2 weeks for the next game. It's going to have to lick its wounds because that was a very physical matchup. But there's no question that this Clemson team, because of the DNA, the talent, the coaching, this is the team. This is the king of the hill right now. And as good as LSU's playing, they still got to knock these guys off.
Dynasty.
Yeah.
Dynasty. Mm-hmm. Regardless what happens in the national championship game between LSU and Clemson, Clemson currently has a dynasty going on before our eyes. Seeing what they did last year, against what many felt was one of the best teams to ever come through Alabama. Granted, they did not win the championship, but leading up to that championship ball game with what Tua was doing, with what his receivers were doing, running backs, the entire team, the way they manhandled Alabama opened a lot of people's eyes. And then coming into this season, the hype with Trevor Lawrence, and then he had a slow start to the season, to begin the season, and then people were criticizing their schedule and almost losing to North Carolina. But this team stayed focused, dialed in, and they just continue to chop wood. And they've been chopping wood the entire season. And this staff, I talked about their staff and how I feel about their staff. They're the best coaching staff in the playoffs. They have the best head coach in the playoffs. And we saw the difference with the experience. Being in this atmosphere, seeing what happened in the first half, going into halftime, going over your adjustments, seeing exactly what you did well and what you didn't do good, and making adjustments and seeing that the opposing team can have a counter. Ryan Day and his staff did not have a counter, and we saw that, and that will transition to New Orleans in the national championship game. I've been talking about Clemson Hakeem for quite some time the last few weeks.
You already picked them to win the national championship.
No question.
Even before it started, the playoffs started.
No question, because I just saw the momentum in their favor. Remember, the knock about Clemson midway through the season was offensively, right?
Right.
The quarterback potentially will be the first player selected in the 2021 draft,
right,
if everything goes accordingly. But he wasn't playing to that level. Guess what he's doing now? Playing to that level. The last 7 ball games, he had what, 3? He had 1 passing touchdown today. So that makes 21 in the last 7 ball games. He had 2. So 22 passing touchdowns in the last 7 ball games, 0 interceptions. He's playing real good football. The only man that's playing better football than Trevor Lawrence at the quarterback position is Joe Burrow.
That's it. That's it. Now you look at it, okay, so you mentioned the word dynasty, right? And Clemson's won 2 of the last 3 national championships. They have a chance now to win 3 of the last 4. But LSU is standing in its way, and LSU's never been here before, and LSU's making its first college football playoff appearance. But as you mentioned, they have a guy named Joe Burrow. He could single-handedly win this game for the LSU Tigers. What makes you think that Clemson can play at the same level as LSU, keep up offensively? Because what we saw in the Peach Bowl was historic.
Well, let's go back in time for me to answer your question. Leading up to the national championship game a year ago between Bama and Clemson, we all felt like with a healthy Tua Tagovailoa, that offense was going to be successful. But what we eventually saw, scheme took over for Clemson. Remember the first game-changing play, the interception return for a touchdown? It wasn't a generic cover 2 coverage they were playing. They were playing a trap coverage, and most collegiate defenses, they do not execute that coverage well. And what a trap coverage is, basically my outside corner, he's reading number 2, And sometimes you can get funky with it, show a single high look, and make the quarterback think you're in a single man-to-man coverage with single high or cover 3 look. But then the safety, my flat safety, to the weak side, he ends up rolling back to the half coverage. And Terrell, what he did was he was reading number 2, had Tua Tagovailoa thinking it was a generic cover 2 where he would reroute number 1, never touch number 2, and jump the out route. Magic. The way they scheme up offenses there at Clemson is like watching pro defensive coordinators go about their business. Venables has been around for a long, long time, and he's seen a lot of football. But what he's done that most defensive coordinators do not do, he showed one thing, and he rolled into something else. You cannot show your hand against Joe Burrow. We saw that with Georgia. We saw that today with Oklahoma. You have to disguise something. Because, yes, it's an up-tempo attack, quote unquote, but when they get to the line of scrimmage, how many times do you see Joe Burrow look to the sideline to get his check? Oh, okay, we got the check from Joe Brady. He sees exactly what the defense is in. Now we're going to call a play for you to counter and work against what they already show us, what they're already showing us they're in. But what Venables and his staff, what he does, the same thing. Yes, we come into the line of scrimmage, and we know you're in an up-tempo attack, but you're waiting for us to show our hands to you. And then you're you're receiving a play that's going to work against what we're showing you. But what they do is they roll into something else also. It's almost like having 2 calls called in one. We're going to show you the first call, but we're going to play the second call based on you making your checks. That's where you scheme up things. You just can't go out and show a card player your hand. You're going to lose.
This is a chess match. I mean, this national championship will be a chess match.
When you get to this level, you just can't go out there and just say, you know what, I'm going to play my man is better than your man football. It's not going to work because they have just as much talent as you. You have to scheme up, guys. You have to be able to make adjustments. You have to have plays ready for the plays that are not working. That's what they do there. Oh, it's 2 Death Valleys. Clemson and
the Tigers.
And the Tigers.
It's the clash of the Tigers.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what they do in Death Valley. But,
yeah.
And Clemson,
but they're not playing this game in Death Valley. They're playing this in the backyard of the LSU Tigers in New Orleans.
Yeah, but that's why I believe, I believe that Clemson defense will have success. Might not start off with the success like we saw tonight, but the adjustments that staff make, that's the best staff in football right now. It's the best staff.
As you and Barton know, defense wins championships. This is first against first.
All the time.
LSU, 48.9 points per game, first in FBS. Clemson, 11.5 points per game allowed, first in FBS. It is 1 versus 1 offense, defense. This is going to be incredible. Like, I can't wait. January 13th, just like Joe Burrow.
We got to wait till the 13th? That's not even fair.
I mean, we're going to break this down every way.
Barton, what are we going to do?
We're going to break it down. We're going to break it down for days. That's what we do.
We got a lot of talking to do.
Yeah, we got a whole lot of talking to do. I can't wait.
I'm fired up. I think I had some.
You know what we're going to be talking about next? We're going to be talking about lines. The line is out for the national championship game. We will break it down next with Vegas insider Todd Furman. Keep it locked as our coverage continues of the college football playoff here on HQ.